Hi, and welcome to a new episode of the Social Intelligence and Conversation Strategies series. My name's Richard Gray, and I'm happy to have you along, whether you're watching me on the live stream or you're listening to me on the podcast. So, in our last live stream, we talked about pacing and leading in conversations. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to pacing and leading, why didn't you listen to my last live stream? Go back and listen to it first, and then come back and watch a recording of this one. Okay, have you done that? Great. So, in the last live stream, we talked about pacing and leading. And one of the ways that we can lead in conversation is by asking questions. Now, in this episode, we're going to take it a stage further and we're going to make an assumption that you're getting a poor response from the other person. So, just to be clear, when you ask a question from the other person, you are compelling them almost to respond to your question. Of course, sometimes people ignore questions. Conversations are messy and it goes in all kinds of different directions. But as a general rule, people are polite enough to respond to your question if they heard it. So this is one method of leading in a conversation. You ask a question, you are leading the other person to respond to it. But what if you get a poor response? What if the person doesn't really want to talk about what you're asking them about? Or what if you ask them a closed question? In that case, maybe the fault is yours because you're inviting a one word response. And just to be clear, the difference between an open and a closed question only requires a one or a two-word response, such as a yes or a no, whereas an open question requires a fuller response from the other person. So maybe you asked a closed question and that's why you only got a short response. But generally, you'll be able to tell from the body language of the other person and their tone of voice whether they are keen to talk about or give you a more detailed answer to your question. So let's add a bit of context in here. Let's say you're asking somebody what they do for a living. Now, this could be quite a polarized question. There's a lot of people in the world, and maybe you're one of them, who don't like what they do for a living. Maybe you're just doing it to pay the bills, put food on the table, but you don't enjoy it, you don't like it very much, and it doesn't reflect well on you as a person and your potential, your capabilities. But you're doing it anyway because you have to pay those bills. But maybe you've got aspirations to go into a different career role, and this is just a stopgap. But somebody is now asking you what you do for a living, and you don't really want to talk about it. Maybe you're stacking shelves, maybe you're working in a fast food restaurant, something that requires nothing from you. It's a process that you'll learn once and then you repeat over and over. And it's not stimulating to your brain. It doesn't fulfill you intellectually. Whatever it is that you may be looking for in life, one thing is for full fulfillment. And if you're doing a job that is low skilled and it's not providing that fulfillment, it's only providing a means for paying your bills, then chances are you don't want to talk about it. Now, I've done certain jobs in the past that I did not like, I was not proud of. In fact, one of them was downright ugly as a job and I hated it and I lasted 3 nights at it. It was a night job. And if somebody asked me at that moment in time what I did for a living, I would have outright refused to respond. And at other times, if I was feeling more polite, I would have responded very shortly with a one or a two-word response. I would not have wanted to talk about it. Now, as a person asking the question, what do you do for a living? If you're getting a short response, maybe they do enjoy their job, but they're waiting for you to give them permission to talk more about it. So then the magic is in the follow-up question. So let's say you ask, what do you do for a living? They respond, I work in a shop. And that's your response. So now you've got a choice. You either move on to a new topic or You try to get a bit more information out of them. You encourage them. You probe them for more details. So you ask them, well, do you enjoy that job? Do you like doing what you do? Now they can still answer with a one-word response. They might just say yes or no, and you're still not getting very much from them. They're being a hard nut to crack, right? So again, you've got a choice. Do you pursue this line of conversation further, or do you take a hint and you move on to something else? Now, maybe they do want to talk, but they're just waiting again for your permission for further to enable them to talk more, or maybe they're just very neutral or they don't want to talk about it. So it's up to you to sense their body language, their tone of voice to see whether they do want to talk further. But maybe you're not ready to abandon the topic. Maybe you want to take it in a different direction. You want to future pace. So what is future pacing? So future pacing is inviting somebody to visualize their future. So in this context, you can frame your question as, well, imagine you didn't have to do that job anymore. Imagine you don't have to pay your bills anymore. Maybe your bills are covered for the rest of your life. Imagine you don't have to do that job. What would you do instead? And now the other person is accessing, they can't help it. It's like you telling somebody to imagine a blue elephant. You can't help but now conjure up an image of a blue elephant in your mind. So it's the same idea. You ask someone to imagine what they would like to do as a job or as a career instead. And now maybe they've got a dream at the back of their mind, and now they're accessing that dream and they're visualizing themselves doing it. They're playing the scenario out in their head. Or maybe they haven't got a dream, but they're imagining instead what they would like to do. Now, in their response might emerge some of their values. And now, through the values that emerge, you find ways of connecting with these people, this person that you're talking to. So let's say, for example, they say, well, I'd love to be a peacekeeper or an aid worker. I'd love to travel the world, go into poor areas, difficult areas of the world, war areas, very relevant to what's happening in the world today. And in fact, pretty much throughout history, I don't think there's ever been a time in history when there isn't a war going on somewhere in the world, or there's a famine happening somewhere. We all know what's happening in the world today. So if somebody said, I'd like to be an aid worker, I really like to help people, and now a value is emerging, the value of wanting to help other people. So now you've got a new line to explore and make a connection with the other person. Why would you like to do that? The topic, instead of being a dead-end topic where you're trying to encourage someone to talk about something they maybe didn't want to talk about, now we've got an entirely new topic branching out of that dead topic that the other person wasn't responding to. And maybe they already had a dream, so they talk about that. And now they're accessing happy memories, happy thoughts, not memories, happy thoughts of what they want to do. And they're feeling good because they're talking about something that excites them. And who doesn't want to talk about something that they feel good about and that excites them? I think most people do. If you ask me what I want to do in the future, what my dreams are, of course, I would be happy to talk about them. It makes me feel good. And because you've asked me that question, you're responsible for me feeling good. So by you asking somebody else, you can be responsible for making them feel good by accessing this future scenario. So future pacing is asking somebody to imagine what they would like to do instead. Let's give another example. Where do you come from? I come from Sheffield. Do you like it in Sheffield? Is it nice there? Not really. It's very industrial. Or they might say, oh yeah, very pretty city, lots of trees. And you might not get much more information out of them. So you could say, well, if you don't Imagine if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? So you're using the word imagine again. Especially good if you get a negative or a closed response to the question, where do you live? If you sense that they don't like where they live, then you can use the imagine angle. Imagine that you could live anywhere in the world. Where would you live? And why? Why would you live there? So they might want to live in another country. They might like to, if you live in the UK, as I do, you might like to live in Australia. Why? Because of the sunshine. I went to Australia once, and the size of the fruits there, everything was twice as big as the fruits you get here in the UK. And everybody just looked healthier through my perception as well while I was there. Of course, there's the negative side, of course, but if you're in the zone of thinking in a positive mindset, these are some of the reasons why, if I was going to Australia, that's why I would go there, because of the fruits and the smoothest stalls. Oh, wonderful. Anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked. Maybe it's because of the sunshine. If you've just gone through a long, cold, dank English winter, maybe you crave a more tropical climate to live in. So these are some of the reasons why you might want to live somewhere else, and where you want to live geographically in the world. Maybe you've got family somewhere else in the world. So now, by sensing that somebody doesn't enjoy living where they live, and you're asking them, well, imagine that you could live anywhere in the world and you're not tied down to where you are at the moment. Where would you live and why? And again, values might come out of their response. Well, my family is in Australia and I'm close to my family. I came here for work. So now you're seeing that family values are something that's strong to them, and maybe it's strong to you too. And now you find a way of connecting with them. Oh, yes, I'm very family oriented too. So you see how the future pacing angle works. And that is this topic for today, future pacing. So basically, in a nutshell, 3 steps to it. Ask them a question. What do you do for a living? Where do you live? Apply the question to whatever you like. That's just the examples I used here. What do you do for a living? They respond. Your follow-up question, do you like it? They give you a response, and then if it's a negative response, it's a closed response, and you sense that they don't like what they're doing, go for the 3rd part. Well, imagine you didn't have to do that anymore. You didn't have to live there anymore. Where would you live? What would you do instead? 3 parts. Question, do you like, imagine. And that is future pacing. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that gave you some inspiration and ideas for when you're in a conversation in the future, and it feels like you ask questions, but you end up going down a tunnel to a dead end, and that dead end results in an awkward silence. So you hold back from actually asking questions. So now maybe this future pacing concept has encouraged you to, giving you the confidence to ask questions again, knowing that you've got a different direction to go in, instead of the inevitable awkward silence or the brick wall at the end of the question. Okay, I hope that made sense. Okay, I'm going to end the live stream here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me once again. And I look forward to you joining me on the next live stream, and for opening your